Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Sorry, we're a little late. It's my fault, per usual. For all of you that know me, I'm always late to calls. But I appreciate you all joining us. So we're actually going to start by having these lovely folks that have decided to join us today to talk. Introduce yourselves. So maybe you all can just go around and say what you were doing before you decided to change careers, what you're currently doing, and maybe how long that took you, and maybe a fun fact if y'all would like, just change it up a little bit. And in the meantime, as you all introduce yourselves, if anybody has questions, please put them into the chat. This is really meant to be a Q&A kind of format, so feel free to put questions in the chat. Nothing's off limit. The participants will decide if they don't want to answer the question. Nicole, do you want to start?
Sure. My name is Nicole Savona. I started Avocademy in maybe like September, October, somewhere around there, and went into Career Jumpstart after that. I started out, well, my career previous to this was as a wildlife biologist, so just entirely switching careers. I had like a sciencey background and I liked art a lot. So it's like kind of UX is like the science and UI is like the art, kind of mashed them together, and found Avocademy on TikTok actually. And then, yeah, now I have graduated Career Jumpstart and have just finished my first week at a startup called Armory, which is a fantastic company, and I've been loving the people and the like first week so far. Lots of green flags. It's going really well. None of it seems real. It seems kind of crazy to think that less than a year ago I was just like really struggling with being burnt out as a wildlife biologist, even though I was passionate about it. And now I'm more relaxed even just in the first week, and not stressed about money. So that's where I am right now. And by fun fact, do you mean like about me or just
anything you want? Yeah, fun about you, not just like a random fact.
Like, okay, I'll spit out some random facts.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know. I guess that I have 4 cats. I don't know how fun that is, but those are my children. So fun fact, I'm a crazy cat lady. All right, Franklin, you want to go next?
Sure. So my name is Franklin Wagner. My pronouns are he, him. I am currently working as a UX researcher at a property tech startup based in New York called Ribbon. Before Avocademy, I was doing a mix of like human services work, working with people with disabilities, as well as I had transitioned to higher education. I was in grad school and was teaching theater and acting full time. And then I started Avocademy in November of last year, and then graduated that first kind of foundations in early January, and then hopped right into Career Jumpstart and did that for a few months. And then I am now starting my 7th or 8th week at Ribbon. And it's just been a really great, honestly, great experience at the company. And it's like overwhelming in the best way. So yeah, and a fun fact is I learned Irish Gaelic as my foreign language in college. So I spent a summer in Ireland just speaking Irish. Salome, you're up.
Hi, everyone. My name is Salome Kushal. I started Avocademy in November of 2021, and I finished in January, and I took a 2-month gap and then started a Career Jumpstart in March. During that time, I was trying to get my life together and figure out what I wanted to do, because I previously worked in the social justice advocacy realm, specifically in politics. And I did digital media, where I worked in social media management, content strategy, and copywriting. And working in that realm was very exhausting, as one would imagine. And then social media never sleeps. So I was always having to be creatively on. And so at that point, I was ready for something new. And I was on TikTok one night and I found Avocademy, and I decided to sign up just to test the waters, and I wanted to learn something new. And during that time I was freelancing, and I loved it so much that I am now working as a UX UI designer at a climate tech company called Powerly. I just started 3 weeks ago, so I am fresh in the game.
Nice. It's always great to kind of have you all join these calls when you're like just starting to get like this, how are you feeling about it? Is it still like, are you still like pinching yourself to see if it's real?
Yeah.
But that's awesome. Cool. I don't see any questions in the chat, so I'm just kind of waiting for those to come in. But yeah, what would you all say was the hardest part of like changing careers, or going through the program, right? Like, was it a mental thing? Was it like an actual, like balancing of time? Like, what would you say that was? And maybe we'll go in the same order, Nicole.
Yeah, mine was just because I was going through a lot personally at the same time. Personal, not fun fact moment was the day that I started Avocademy. My wife cheated on me and we started a divorce process, and I'm now currently divorced. Woo! I'm over it now, but that, obviously that was a big wrench in my life, right as I was trying to like focus on switching careers, and then not having like a second income as well. So a lot of pressure, and just trying to find the time. I worked full time through everything while going through divorce stuff and figuring out how to find time for Avocademy. So I made it work. I took breaks when I needed to for like mental health. And I had mentors like check in on me too, and I would take little breaks, and that was helpful just to know that they were still like there, and asking how they could help. And in some situations, I was like, yes, you can help, and this is how, and they helped me set new deadlines and things. So that was super helpful. But that was the hardest part for me, was just finding the time and the mental space. But I realize not everyone will like also have a full-time job in like a divorce. So like probably easier for some people. But I made it, and it made it that much more rewarding now that I've started my new job.
Yeah, I think if you're able to go through like such a big life event and have a full-time job and do this program, right? Like that just shows like almost anybody can do it. Like you did it with like the biggest things that could possibly happen, right? Like in somebody's life. So props. I think that's huge. And thank you for sharing it with us.
Yeah.
Franklin?
Yeah, I would. Oh my God. Okay. So foundations, I was working full-time as a customer service rep for a food startup called Chow Now, and hating my life because I was getting yelled at all the time. But the hardest thing for me was the balance, because I was just working like a soul-sucking job and then spending my nights doing Avocademy. And it was great. I think one of the most difficult things for me at the time was trusting the mentors, and not that like I didn't trust their feedback, but that they were seeing something that I wasn't, and I couldn't quite see it. But then my eye started to get better and better, to the point where like when I would do projects in Career Jumpstart, I would be like, something is off here, and I'd be able to do something in Figma and be like, oh, this is off a few pixels. So it was frustrating to kind of have to develop that skill, and very frustrating during it, but I'm glad I did it after. And then I think the hardest thing also was just trusting myself to pivot, and knowing that I would be able to get there eventually, and I did. Saloni?
Yeah, I would say when I started Foundations, I was in a pretty rough place mentally, because I quit my last job because it was driving me crazy. And so having to find the energy and the commitment to something new was a little bit rough. But after a while, I got a hang of it, and it was, I wouldn't say smooth sailing, because Foundations is not easy, but it became more easier to navigate, like me accepting that I'm trying to make a career change possibly. Yeah.
Thank you all for sharing. Okay, there's a bunch of questions now. I think people are not shy anymore. So I think the first one was, did you all work while doing the program? And I think most of you just answered that question. There's a question about how do you sign up / process. So you can sign up on our website. There's 2 programs. There's the foundations program, which is where you start, and that's about 8 weeks. And then once you finish that, there's an application process for the Career Jumpstart Program, and that's about 8 months. So that's 2 months of projects and then 6 months of like job search support. So all of these folks did both programs. So when they talk about foundations, they're talking about the first step. When they mention Career Jumpstart, they're talking about that second step. There's a question here about job prospects for those that only did foundations versus those that did Career Jumpstart. I'll talk a little bit about like where you're at after you finish foundations, and then maybe you all can talk about like why you decided to do Career Jumpstart after you finish foundations. So to get a job in this field, you need a portfolio website with at least 3 samples of your work. Like that's what a recruiter or hiring manager will like instill trust in them that you know what you're doing, right? Like you've shown multiple times that you have that experience. And you also need those for your interview process. Like you'll have to walk through multiple projects depending on where you're interviewing. When you finish the foundations program, you're going to have learned like the skills and you're going to have done 1 project. So when you finish foundations, there's still work to be done to finish your portfolio. So you can do that on your own, or you can do that through Career Jumpstart. And in Career Jumpstart, we give you like real client opportunities. So we actually like find clients that need work and then assign you to teams to do that. There are students that only do foundations and then they go off and like, you know, finish their portfolio themselves and like go looking for jobs, but we don't really keep track of when they find a job or how long that takes because they're kind of deciding to do that on their own. But maybe you all can go around and say like why, like what was the decision factor, right? On deciding to move on to Career Jumpstart.
I both wanted like more of a variety on my portfolio than what I could like think up in my head. So like I guess you could go and find clients on your own. I didn't want to do that, and I didn't want to have to make up a project like you do on your first project on your portfolio, because I mean that really was like for me a little bit more than 8 weeks and like around 20 or more hours a week. That's a lot of time. So it's like I don't think I can't do this level. Like I want to get into the program and start making more money as fast as I can. So I just kind of wanted to speed up the process as much as I could, and also still have the support of mentors and having that guidance. And I think that it really did help. I mean, definitely for me, I feel like it really did. So I couldn't have done it on my own personally.
Yeah, I would echo a lot of that. I think for me, I wanted to have a variety of projects to be able to talk through in any interview setting. And I had enjoyed some of the mentors that I had met and worked with during foundations. So the idea of having mentorship while working on real world projects was really, really enticing to me, because I mean, I probably could have found some clients pro bono and even like done some stuff for like friends, small businesses, but having people who have experience in the industry mentor you and have that extra set of eyes it emulates the real world so much that it was really helpful to be able to talk about that in interviews as well.
Yeah, kind of piggybacking on everything that y'all said. I also like the tech field was extremely new to me. So I had no clue what I was getting myself into after I finished foundations and decided to pursue UX UI full time. So having the support and the resources and the knowledge from everyone at Avocademy and at Career Jumpstart was extremely beneficial.
So we're going to jump a little bit to your current work-life balance and maybe some benefit questions. So I know a couple of you just started, but what does your vacation benefits kind of sort of look like at your currently job, and how is your work-life balance? Like, are you working more than 40 hours? Or are you working about 40? If you're working way less than 40 hours, don't say this, it's being recorded. Are you working a normal amount of hours, or are you working like, 100+ hours per week? I always have to disclaim that, because we've had some people come on here and be like, I work like 15 hours and I take a nap, and I'm like, this is being recorded. Like, don't say that. But what does work-life balance look like for all of you in terms of hours you're working a week, maybe flexibility on your hours, and then benefits? Like, can you take vacation? What does that look like?
I feel like I really lucked out personally. I guess I came from like the state and federal government, like wildlife. So maybe I just really have no idea what other companies like do. But I was very used to like exactly 8 hours a day, like you're logging your breaks, like very, very strict. You have a specific amount of vacation time and it's not a lot. And now at this company, I work a normal amount of hours, but they do say like we're interested in your output, not your time input. So the daily like hours are flexible. Like I asked about like, do you have like an hour paid break in the middle of the day? Like, how does this work? And they were just like, get the work done, and like that's all. And it's a very big like switch in my brain for me, and they're aware of that. So they're like, okay, like trying to explain how everything works. But and I've already asked for some vacation time actually, and I was like, is this okay if I do this and that? And my supervisor was like, yeah, take more time if you need to, like your time is your time and your time is important. And I was like, what? So not used to this, but I have unlimited vacation time, but an important caveat to that is that there's a minimum 2 weeks that you have to take, because I think some unlimited time off can, you know, people usually sometimes don't take it, and it's not like company culture to take as much vacation. So that was something I was looking for. If there was unlimited vacation, that there was a minimum. And then after you work at the company for 5 years, there's a 3-week minimum that you have to take. So, and none of that time off, like at least 2 weeks, that doesn't count. Doctor's visits, just, you know, if you need to be home for your plumber to come, like whatever it is, jury duty, like all of that stuff that's just life is not included. My vacation time is like actual vacation time. So love that.
Yeah, so I think this is my 6th or 7th week at work, and work-life balance is actually really good right now. So at Ribbon, we don't have set work hours. So if I want to get up at 6 a.m. and work the full day, I can. If I want to stay up late, if I want to split my days, I have a direct supervisor, but they kind of say like you are all your own direct supervisors and manage your time accordingly. So like last week I was doing 15 user interviews, 3 to 4 a day. So my days were very stacked, but then other days I have lighter time to synthesize or schedule, recruit. So my days fluctuate. I also have unlimited PTO, and the company there, they don't have a minimum, but they do really stress like work-life balance. 2 of the designers had kids get sick, and they were logging into Slack, and our manager messaged back for everybody to see, go take the day. What are you doing? Go take care of your kid. Or like somebody couldn't sleep that night and they let them have the day off. I was able to take time off a few weeks in, and I just found this out, we have a Christmas break where from like December 23rd to like January 2nd this year, nobody works. So the work-life balance is really, really great. I think the only thing that's difficult for me right now is allowing myself to have that balance, because like I'm struggling with scheduling my lunch breaks, because we all work asynchronous. There we go. And so it's managing my time with other teammates of like, when can I take 30 minutes to an hour to eat, but I'm getting better at
it. So for me, I really value a healthy work-life balance. And that's actually something that I asked during all of my interviews, just what do certain companies do to ensure like the mental well-being of employees and things like that. So right now, I would say it's pretty healthy. I sadly don't have unlimited PTO. I came from a company that did have unlimited PTO, and I now have 15 days of PTO. So having to kind of navigate where to put that time has been a little bit of a struggle. But they've been really good about just emphasizing like logging off at a certain time when you're done, things like that. And I actually got COVID about a week ago. So I was out for 2 days during the week, and my manager was like, take as much time as you need. Like there's no rush to come back or things like that. So it's a decent work-life balance so far. Yeah.
That's great to hear. I also love like the positive experiences of unlimited PTO being shared, because usually you don't hear positive unlimited PTO stories. So that's great. So going back, well, actually, no, this is pretty good. Are there any gaps in your new position as designers? Like, what would you say is the biggest learning curve, right? So obviously, no bootcamp can teach you everything. And I think we're super transparent with like, we'll help you get the job, and it's really learning on the job, right? Like even myself, like I'm learning new things every day. So what would you all say is like the biggest gaps, right? Between like what you were taught and like the real job that you have now?
I can just think of one thing. Well, my company is very like specific, like the user is like software developers. Like I'm trying to very much get into the mind of like not the general public, but like I'm needing to learn like coding 101 essentially. So obviously you can't go in prepared for that, but they kind of know that. But then the one like UI related thing, because I was hired on as a UI designer, that they mentioned, that I was like, oh, I didn't even really think about that. But kind of like they use a design system that the developers can pull from and then make changes from there. So that was new for me to learn, and I sort of have to learn how, like what changes I can make and work with engineering to figure out what works for them. And they were like asking me if I had ideas with how to organize the design system, because they were like, I don't think it's like the best right now. And yeah, I guess we're not taught to organize design systems, so I have to put some thought into that, but I'll figure it out.
I have some awesome resources I can share with you.
Oh,
My
great.
last project before I started this company was creating a design system. So
Yeah.
I can definitely share some stuff. And I'm in the works of creating a design system masterclass, which I'm not going to tell you when it'll be ready because it's going to be a couple months, but that's actually, I think it's set for like September or October release. But yeah, those are definitely like more advanced skills, but yeah, that's great.
So for me, I would say the biggest gap, because I was hired on specifically as a UX researcher, and that's what I started Foundations knowing that's what I wanted to do and focused on that during Career Jumpstart. But the startup is really asking me to help build out the department. So I'm establishing best practices for research for a startup, as well as the company I work for, we work in cycles. So we work in 6-week cycles with 3 2-week sprints of designing. And then there's like a week before and after for planning. And I had not really done, we had kind of done like mini sprints, I think, in Career Jumpstart, but to be in that environment of, okay, like what does research look like in 2 weeks? And then also like NDAs, consent forms, recruitment, like just very specific things that I'm building out. I'm learning as I'm going, and it's great because the startup is really excited about educating and like letting you grow. But that was the biggest learning curve of like how, and I also came in halfway through a cycle, so that was also very confusing of how to jump into pre-existing research projects.
I would say for me, so right now I'm currently the only UX designer at my company. There's someone joining in about a few weeks. So I was kind of thrown in straight to the wolves. And it was a huge stress and a really big learning curve trying to get a hold of everything. And the past designers that were there left like a good handoff file and transition plan and stuff, but it's still been really difficult trying to hold design up on my shoulders as a newbie at the company. And they're cognizant of that and they've been really great. But I still definitely get nervous in meetings and stuff. I'm like, what am I talking about? Like, is this the right answer to this question? Is this what they're asking me? So I would say lots of imposter syndrome is happening right now. And I've had it in past jobs, so I know it's something that we all deal with. And I don't think it ever goes away, but that is something that I'm definitely struggling with at the moment.
So that's a great segue to the next question, which is, do you feel like foundations and Career Jumpstart help you be well equipped for your full-time job? Is that one of the cats, Nicole? Do you feel that the programs helped you be well equipped for full-time work? And then do you have any imposter syndrome at work? And just, I feel like, big disclaimer, we talk about this all the time in Career Jumpstart. We've had speakers and foundations come talk about imposter syndrome. And I'll give my 2 cents. I think in this field, it's a fairly new field. So the way that people transition into the career, it's not like what people think of, like, oh, I went to high school and then I went to college for 4 years and then I got my job and I moved on, right? Like, everybody's coming from these different backgrounds, which I think adds like another layer of complexity to imposter syndrome, right? Like, oh, I just did a 6-month course. Like, what do I know about this, right? And like, it almost makes you feel it's less traditional, right? Like, what is deemed traditional paths to jobs, that adds like that extra layer. And I've talked about this in the past. Like, I've interviewed for jobs at like Google and Meta and like all of these companies, and I've gotten offers and I've been like, can I do that job? And I'm like, they just gave me the job. Like, why am I questioning if I can do the job or not, right? But I'll let you all share a little bit. Do you feel like you're well equipped, and like, how do you deal with imposter syndrome? Because I think it's just a given that we all kind of experience that in this field.
Yeah, I think I was definitely well equipped, and Career Jumpstart, like, not every like UX UI program has like a Career Jumpstart type of thing. And I think that like made a huge difference, like getting the confidence to like actually talk to clients and work with teammates, and like it was real life experience. So that definitely gave me a lot more confidence. But I've had actually less imposter syndrome after I started the job than while I was interviewing. Like, I did a design challenge, and I just, as soon as they gave that to me and they had my like first interview and had to actually design something, I like panicked. And I messaged Maka. I was like, I'm having some severe imposter syndrome. Like, this is like a real thing that I'm doing right now. It's my first design challenge, and I was kind of panicky there, but got a lot of help and feedback, and that made me feel better. And since then, it's been less. So maybe people feel it more so in the job, but mine was like during the interview process.
Yeah, so I do think that Career Jumpstart and Foundations really made me well prepared for my current position, and even the job search. I felt very confident going into the job search. But yes, also to huge amounts of imposter syndrome, because I'm the first UX researcher that they've hired at the company. There's an associate, and hopefully she's getting a promotion soon because she's doing great. But I'm like the first official researcher. So a lot of people are super excited about what I do, and some understand what my job is, but some don't. So it's been fielding a lot of research requests, or the company I'm working with, we're like building a new product right now. So they're really interested in what research can bring to the table, or what research has already been done. So it's me trying to figure out what's in our repository, or what other departments maybe have done some form of market research that we can then synthesize. But then me only being there for 5 weeks, I don't know all of that, but I want to know all of that. So I feel like I'm very not up to speed. But I was doing interviews last week, and luckily my PM on the project and the designer, they were both on them with me and feeding me additional questions. And then afterwards they were like, that was great. And I thanked them for fielding questions. And they were like, you've been here 4 weeks. Like, you shouldn't understand the product or the company yet. Like, you're doing great. We got some really great insights from you. Thank you. So I think that just reminding yourself that you are going to be new to the company when you join, and to give yourself 30, 60, 90, 6 months to really learn the company and product and ask a lot of questions.
Yeah, definitely yes to all of that. I do agree that Foundations and Jumpstart prepared me for my transition into a full-time role. I will say the working with the different stakeholders at the company has been a little bit of a new thing to me, like working with product and project managers and developers and engineers and being in meetings with them, I wasn't prepared for how those meetings worked and like what was actually asked. So it's been a little bit of a learning curve. And then what was the other question?
Imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome.
Oh yeah. Oh, yep. As y'all know, lots of it happening over here. I actually have like tomorrow, I have a meeting scheduled for a review of my first like round of designs that I've done, like big round of designs for a sprint. So we're gonna see how that goes. And I'm hoping some good feedback comes in so I can kind of alleviate some imposter syndrome that's going on right now.
Thank you all for sharing. It's great to kind of see, like the different perspectives for that. All right, next question. Why did you decide to select Avocademy and not another boot camp? Like what stood out from other programs like DesignLab, etc.?
For me, I was looking at price, like I didn't make a lot of money at all. So I needed something that I could afford to pay for upfront to get started. I was also looking for, so Avocademy is like cheaper than a lot of programs, especially upfront costs. But then I was looking for time. Like I wanted something quicker than like a 6 months course. I know just about myself, how I learn and how my motivation works, that I am like focused on it for like a short period of time and then I'll drift. So I was like, I gotta get it done, and just kind of like put everything I can into it in the beginning. And since it was like 6 to 8 week course, I was like, that's better. I'll put more time in and I'll just crank it out and then I'm good. So I like that time period. And then for the Career Jumpstart too, you can pay after you're making more money, which is great because I did not have money up front to like pay for that part either. And then, I'm making much more money now, so I can definitely afford that, and it's worth it for sure. So yeah, price and time. And a lot of programs don't have mentors. I forgot to mention that. That was great.
For me, it's similar. I had done the Google UX course on Coursera. I'd started that and worked on a few projects, and but was still looking at other kind of General Assembly or Springboard or other programs. And then I saw TikTok, and one of like the first videos of y'all's to go kind of like viral, semi-viral, and I remember Zooming with Maka and, oh God, who's the intake coordinator? Carla.
Yeah.
And Maka was like, yeah, your designs, I'm seeing kind of what basic issues that we always find, but yeah, you could do Career Jumpstart right now. And I was like, I'm not ready for that. I don't know anything. But talking to them more, I really loved the approach to foundations, and also that you could pick a project that kind of was interesting to you, so you could bring a lot of self and like passion to finish it. And then the ability to work with real world projects at the end of Career Jumpstart, that was a no-brainer. Just because you can network, you're building not only with them, but with other designers. And it just offered me a ton of experience that I could bring to the interview table.
I would say definitely was affordability for me as well. And definitely the more intimate, like experience, I would say, I don't know if intimate's the right word, but like the more personalized, like person-to-person approach to a boot camp definitely was a factor for me. I also scheduled a one-on-one call with Carla and we hit it off immediately. I think we talked about just life and general, just lifestyle stuff for like 30 minutes. And then we finally got to like talking about the program and stuff. And she was super transparent with any questions that I had. And I think that in there, I was kind of like, this is a company or, that I'd want to learn from and support as well.
Thank you all for sharing. Carla's definitely the ray of sunshine in our office. But yeah, and this is not sponsored by TikTok. All of you have mentioned that. Okay, so I think the next question we touched on a little bit when we started, which was what was the hardest part of the program. Was there a specific, so let me rephrase this question. Was there a specific concept, like design concept, that was really hard for you all to understand? And feel free to just say skip. No, like it was it was fine.
I don't know that I struggled with a concept in particular. Maybe honestly, just like the difference between like UX, UI, and like remembering the terminology, like that to me was just, you know, as you're learning new terms and what things mean and where they categorize. Because in the beginning, I was asking a lot of questions like to mentors about how the job works, where like what kinds of jobs you could get. In UX UI, like I did all of that, asked the mentors in the beginning, and so that helped me. But yeah, there's just getting like the industry knowledge in general of like terminology was probably it for me.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that like everybody calls it something different, and the answer is usually it depends.
Yes.
So yeah, yeah. Cool.
Oh God, for me, it was padding. Because I had a few designs where the mentors were like, it seems more padding. And I couldn't figure out what they were meaning. I was really trying to understand it. And I would Google it, and there were like a few different definitions. And I was like, what is padding? And that was struggle. And then also just working with grids to start. That was like my brain just couldn't make the switch for some reason. But then once it did it, it all made a lot more sense. But padding was my biggest issue.
So fun fact, Franklin and I worked on a really big project together in Career Jumpstart. And one time he was looking at a design and he's like, look at the padding. And I was like, what? Padding? And we were just going back and forth trying to figure it out. And I was like, Franklin, I do not know. But for me specifically, I would say auto layout on Figma. I wish I would have spent more time trying to learn it and work with it before I started my job, because I realized how handy it actually is. And even when I'm working like day to day, I'll have a video up, like just to make sure that I'm doing it correctly. And I'm also like, you're also learning on the job, like Maka mentioned. So definitely auto layout is something that I've struggled with.
Yeah. Franklin, you'd be very happy to know I had a padding conversation with Jenny today about how we had to address the way mentors are giving feedback so the students understand what it means, specifically talking about padding. But yeah, I think, you know, we're always trying to improve the program. And recently, Saloni, actually, we just launched like an advanced Figma class that has like everything around components and auto layout. And it was not created by myself. It was created by Cody, who's one of our mentors. And I was going through it and I was like, oh shit, I didn't know you could do that. Like, I was like mind blown with these skills. So I totally, like, I think even myself, like I'm still learning things. Like the tools change, right? Figma just changed like a month or two ago. And I was like, I had no idea that now you can do all of this stuff. I was like so surprised. So that's awesome. All right, I know we have 15 minutes, so I'm gonna try and fit all these questions in. How was it working with real clients? And are you working on the projects during your full-time job? Curious to know how you all juggled it. I would say that in Career Jumpstart, it's less of a time commitment, and maybe you all can agree or disagree, but in Career Jumpstart, I think the time commitment like fluctuates based on the project and how big your team is. But you don't have to work on it during business hours. Like most of the team has full-time jobs and they are working like in the afternoon. So it is asynchronous. But I'll let you all answer like how I was working with real clients, and feel free to be honest. Just don't name any client names if you're going to say something brutal about the clients themselves.
Yeah, I've heard of some clients being harder than others to please, but mine were really great, really supportive, and even offered and did write like recommendations so that I could put on like ZipRecruiter and stuff. Like they offered that outright at the end. And so I think the clients were great. Well, one of my clients was Maka, so great. There was another part of this question. Oh, how we juggled it. I did work my full-time job at the same time, and it worked well with my teams because they were pretty flexible with their time. So I was able to be like, this is the time that I have. Like can we try to work around me, please? And they were very understanding, and that worked out well. So I just said, like, I set aside specific times, but also when we were splitting work in the beginning, like who would do what, I knew like which weekends I would have entirely available. And honestly, I just like jam-packed like the first weekend to get as much as I could done with the project. I took on all the like UX research and everything right in the beginning because I knew I had that time and I liked doing the research part. So everyone was like, yeah, do you want to take on that much in the beginning? I was like, yeah, I have this whole weekend to do the thing. Let me just do all of this stuff. And it worked out well. And then I was able to kind of, it wasn't as much of a time commitment after doing those like 20 or so hours, like that. Well, it was more than 20 hours. I guess I spent like a whole weekend, but after that, I could just like put feedback in and meet with my teammates, and it wasn't as much of a time commitment like Maka mentioned, like for the full extent of the Career Jumpstart, it like did fluctuate.
Yeah, so I worked two or three jobs during Career Jumpstart. But a nice thing is when you meet with your team for a project, you all kind of on a Google Doc write out your name and then kind of how many hours a week you can allocate to the project. And it really is about like a work-life balance. So a lot of my projects was really great. I think the clients were always amazing. The hardest part for me was working with the teams at time, just because we were working asynchronous. So trying to like catch up to see like what someone had done previously was really difficult. Or on like some projects, people just kind of vanished. Which Saloni and I, we had a lot of time working together, but we killed it. So I think it was a good experience just knowing how important communication is. And that's what the projects for both the stakeholder, like your client, but then your team, you really do realize like how important updates are, and also protecting your time and your sanity. Sometimes these projects, they can get stressful.
Yeah, and poor Franklin was like the lead on a project that I threw like 8. It was a huge project, and I was like, here, lead this project with 8 team members. And we have never done that again ever since. So we learned our lesson.
Happy
You
to
did a
help.
great job.
Yeah.
You did a great job.
No, you did a great job, Franklin.
No, y'all, Saloni killed it. She was one of the designers on the team, and she champ.
I appreciate it. My client experiences were pretty decent. I didn't have any crazy stories. I would say Career Jumpstart. Oh, I was close to freelancing full-time when I was doing Career Jumpstart. So I think it's all about balancing your time and allocating when you're going to actually sit and work on the projects. That was probably the hardest part was figuring out when I could do it. And then, yeah, sometimes your team members will not contribute as much as you expected them to. So you'd have to go in and pick up the slack. It's kind of like college group projects. If y'all have gone through that, it has the same vibe sometimes. So it's a manageable experience, I would say.
Thank you all. There's a question here about, are the hours for full-time students considered in the Career Jumpstart program if you're in between a transition? So the minimum hourly requirement is like 10 to 20 weeks for 10 to 20 hours per week for Career Jumpstart. If you do have full-time availability, you can work on 2 projects at a time. So there's just like a minimum threshold, but if you have more hours, we can definitely like give you more projects or get you working on some other things. Let's do like a quick fire. Do you all work in person or remotely?
Remote.
Yeah, everybody's remote. Yeah, I would say 90, and don't quote me on this number, but like almost 100% of our grads work remote right now. It's probably like a 95-ish to 100%. And there's a couple folks that work hybrid. They have to be in the office like 2 days a week. And we've helped those people negotiate higher salaries or get like their gas paid for. Nowadays, very expensive. Like we've helped put that into the negotiation of their final offers. How many interviews did you go through before you ended up in your current position? So another quick fire. How many interviews total?
I think
not
like
just for that role.
13.
Yeah.
I think I had 6.
I got hired on to the first company I interviewed with, so I had a
I
few.
know.
I
I know
get really
Nicole's like
lucky.
a special case. Yeah, I think on average we see anywhere from like 10 to 30 interviews total. And then we see like a couple of rounds. So anywhere from 2 rounds to like 6 rounds for one company if you make it all the way to the end. But usually what happens is like you'll make it to the second round of like a lot, and then you'll make it to the third and plus of like a couple, and that's the ones you end up getting offers from. Okay, so one last question before we wrap up. What kept you all motivated during your interview process to keep on applying for jobs?
Mine was like a weird experience, like I just mentioned. So I didn't do any other interviewing, but the interview process for the company that I did get hired on was long. I must have spent like over 20, 30 some like hours between like interviews and the design challenge. So I just stayed like motivated through that. And that was honestly just sheer panic. Because I really wanted the job. So it worked.
Yeah, because you didn't apply for jobs for that long, right? It was like 2 weeks, not even like it was.
Yeah. I tried to keep applying while I was doing the interview process, but because I was spending like 20, 30 hours on it for like a couple weeks, I didn't get to do much other applying. I kind of only hardcore applied for like a couple days, but the first day that I started applying, I got a message from my now coworker offering to interview like that night. So lucky.
Yeah, lucky, very lucky. Yeah, disclaimer. Yeah, like insert disclaimer here. This does not happen often. But yeah, that's awesome.
For me, I would just say the interviews were great practice. So like in applying for the jobs, they kind of talk about don't apply to like your dream jobs within the first like few weeks. So I was applying to a lot of jobs, got a decent amount of interviews, but ribbon, like the vibe from them was so great, even from the recruiter call. And like I went through 6 rounds of interviews with them, I think, and towards the end I was like, if they don't give me the job, I'm just gonna. But everybody I met there was so great. But for the motivation throughout interviewing was just to keep using the other interviews and applications as practice.
I thankfully was only applying for 8 or 9 days. I don't know how it happened, but I was in the process of interviewing at 2 different companies, one I'm currently at and another one. And I was just fast tracked through the other one, and the process just moved really quickly. And I also hit it off very well with the friend during my first interview with the recruiter. And I was like, this is a company that I would enjoy working at, because it's a tell-all of company culture when you're able to have a good conversation with them, I think.
Cool. Thank you all. Before we do so my last question to you all is, if you could tell your pre-Avocademy self one piece of advice, what would it be for all the folks that are either already going through the program or about to? And I'll give you all a minute to think about that as I answer this last question. The question here is, does Avocademy have experience with foreign students outside of US, Canada, and UK? So anybody can apply for the Foundations program. Just the payment options are a little different depending on your location. Career Jumpstart is only available for US, Canada, and UK. And that's just because we're slowly growing, learning like the job markets in different areas. So those are the areas that we're currently in. As of June 20th, I was like, what day is it today? As of June 20th, that is kind of where we're at. If any of you are interested in signing up for Foundations, and we haven't had any drop-offs this entire call, which I think is crazy, but you all have kept their attentions. Sadi, who's our marketing lead, is going to share a coupon code for $200 off in the chat here. And I think that expires on Wednesday. So if any of you are thinking about it and this lovely group of people convinced you, there's a little fun extra thank you for staying to the end. And we'll get to the last question. What would be one piece of advice you would tell yourself, 8 months ago or a year ago before you started this, when you were like not sure if you wanted to do this or not?
I probably some of what Solani said about practicing some of the like more complicated UI things as I was learning, like the auto layout, things like that. That probably would have been good. Like in hindsight, it's nice, but I am learning it now. I'm learning it on the job, and I'm less stressed and I have more time to do it now. So I'm not like too upset that I didn't do it. But if I had more time and I wasn't working full time, I would have done that. But I think generally the advice that I gave to myself in the beginning, I did stick with, was just like taking time for myself when I needed to. So that helped in terms of like keeping motivation.
Yeah, I would say, like for me, trust that what you bring to the table from your previous life experience has value in this new job and industry. That's a really big part as to why they hired me. And also to realize that everybody at every company in any job is always still learning how to do the job, especially in this field and industry. So to give myself a little bit more kindness to the process.
I would tell past me that you can do hard things. Making a career transition is not easy. It's so daunting. And learning all these new skills and stuff, it's hard. So yeah, you can do hard things.
Thank you all. Super appreciate your time. Please keep in touch with me. And also thank you to everybody that joined this live. But yeah, thank you for sharing your experiences. Bye, y'all.
Having me.
See ya. Thank you.